Hello, my name is Sam Sorokin. I'm the broker and managing partner for Premium Properties. I want to thank you for choosing one of our premium properties to be your next home. First and foremost, please consider yourself one of our customers. A lot of people consider their residents as just tenants and not that important, but you are important, and we want you to have a really great experience at our property. Unfortunately, people don't call us up on a daily basis and say, hey, I love my apartment. I wish you would. Frankly speaking, if we don't hear from you, we're assuming that everything is just fine. But if you need something, please call us because we want you to have a great experience. While it's important that you read through the entire lease and understand it, I thought I might take some time to go through some of the key aspects of the contract. You will notice from your lease that it indicates the location, the rent, and the term. Please make sure that it's correct because we don't want you signing the wrong lease. Keep in mind that our leases terminate at the end of their term and they do not go month to month. That's the one area of inflexibility we have at Premium. So when the time comes to renew your lease, which is either 60 or 90 days before the expiration date, you're going to get a letter at least 20 days prior to that asking you whether you want to stay for another year. The lease also stipulates where and when to pay your rent. Rent is due on the 1st and late on the 5th, but it is due on the 1st. If something's happening in your life that may require you to pay your rent late, please contact us in advance. We know that things happen, and we need to be considerate of those specific unique circumstances. The way you pay your rent is you can either mail it to us, drop it at our office. If it's applicable for your particular property, you can pay through our online portal, which of course is the preferred way. Included in the move-in funds, you will see that there's a first month's rent, which may be prorated depending on when you move in, and a security deposit. You'll notice that the security deposit in our area is very high. It's a lot of money. It's really our goal that you get every penny back for one simple reason, is if you get every penny back, it means that the next person will likely be able to move in without much improvements necessary to the apartment. We do a lot of things on the way out to prepare you from our expectations. Different inspections, letters that explain what our expectations are. You're also welcome to make phone calls to us and talk to us for guidance. Again, as I said, we really don't want you to lose any money from your deposit. And generally, if you're going to lose some money, you typically already know about it because you've communicated with us before. 95% of people, though, do not lose a dime off their security deposit. However, the biggest dispute between landlords and tenants is usually over the security deposit. And it goes something like this. The owner wants to charge you for some amount of money for some damage that you insist occurred before you moved in. Of course, we can't charge you for something that's pre-existing. But frankly, we're not going to remember what it was like when you moved in, and neither will you. And so the only way to avoid this conflict, this potential for confusion, is to complete the check-in, check-out sheet. You'll find that in your packet. You want to make sure you complete it within the first 7 days of possession. In addition to that form, we do have some residents who take photos in order to make sure they have a visual documentation of any issues. That's certainly welcomed. Again, we don't want to charge you for anything that is not your responsibility. But understand, if there is damage, we got to charge you. Keep in mind that if you don't fill out that check-in, check-out sheet on time within the first 7 days, call us 3 months later, then the clause in the lease that you'll see that says that the place is perfect will come in. Keep in mind, a lot of our properties are between 50 and 100 years old. The odds of them being 100% perfect is slim. So there's usually something to put on that form. But keep in mind that form is not for repair items. It's items that we could theoretically charge you for on the way out of a lease. So if you notice when you move in, which is very rare, that something's not working on your apartment, you want to immediately submit a maintenance request. That's not really something that goes on that form. The other thing to keep in mind is that in all aspects of this lease, you are jointly and solely responsible for the terms of this contract. So if you are living with another person, it's important that you understand that what they do also impacts you. If they don't have the funds to pay the rent, then you need to pay it. If they cause damage to the apartment, then it's coming out of your collective deposit. We don't deal with the inner workings of the roommates, and so it's important that you consider who you're living with and that you come up with ways to prevent conflict between yourselves on the way out. One of the first things you want to do before you move into your apartment is make sure that you set up your utilities. You notice that your lease stipulates some utilities that the owner pays and some utilities that you pay. And for the most part, water and garbage is paid by the owner, but sometimes your unit may have a separate water meter, so it's important that you set up those utilities. You want to do that before you move in, because every year we have situations occur where people move in and the power is out. And if it's on a weekend, it might take 3 or 4 days before the utilities company to come in. In addition, some of our properties have an auto billing feature. The bill will go to us when the prior resident terminates their service. If that bill comes to us and we have to then bill you for those charges, there's actually a $35 charge assessed to your account. So it's really important that you set up your utilities before you move in. If you're going to get a landline, make sure that you get the inside wire repair plan. That is another item that's stipulated in your lease. You also may want to make arrangements with the resident manager or with us as to gaining access to the telephone closet. Your lease will stipulate who lives in the apartment, and it's only those that are allowed to live there for any long periods of time. It's of course okay to have a guest periodically. Your lease states that you can have one for 5 days. But if you want to have someone more long-term, it's important that you communicate with us first. Having what we call a legal subletter in the apartment is a serious lease violation and something you do not want to be involved with. Now, certainly, if you're in a group with roommates, sometimes your group will need to change people and do what we call a roommate replacement. If that situation is happening with you, let's say a person's job changes or leaving to go study abroad and you want to have a new roommate, please contact us as well as go on our website. On our website, you'll find our roommate replacement procedures, which indicates exactly what to do in those situations. But certainly if you have any further questions, you're welcome to contact us. Your primary responsibility to us is to pay your rent and to not destroy your apartment. Our primary responsibility to you is to keep it in good working order. And really, frankly, the thing that makes a difference as to whether we are the type of management company you'd want to use a second time all comes down to how we handle your maintenance issues. These properties are, as I mentioned, sometimes 100 years old and things go wrong all the time, but it's our interest to always fix them. We never not want to fix problems. We always want to fix your problems. The thing is, you just need to let us know. Keep in mind there are 2 types of problems that will happen in your apartment, things that impact your apartment and things that impact your ability to live in the apartment. Certainly, if you don't have use of a toilet or there's gas leaking or something like that, then you're going to call us immediately. But sometimes there's a leaky faucet and the water is dripping under the sink and it's just causing our water bill to get expensive. It's important that you contact us about those 2. We do an annual inspection, but really we look at you as to be the guardian of our apartment, to keep an eye on it and let us know if there's something that needs to be attended to, because as I mentioned, we do want to fix problems. The way you want to communicate with us about a maintenance request is on our website. It's very user-friendly, and it's important that you not only tell us the problem, when it occurred, but also give us permission to enter and how that permission happens. We promise to only go in your apartment if there's 24 hours notice, but how we provide that notice may differ depending on your specific situation. If you are experiencing some sort of after-hours emergency that cannot wait to the next business day, please call our office so that we can attend to it immediately. Unfortunately, when it comes to getting locked out of your apartment, that's not considered an after-hours emergency. While some of our properties do have resident managers, and if the resident manager happens to be home, they can certainly let you in. For the properties that don't have resident managers, or if the resident manager is not home, we do not consider a lockout as an emergency. And you really have 2 choices as to how to deal with that situation. You can either come to our office during normal business hours and pick up a key and make a copy and bring it back, or you can call a locksmith, which is quite pricey, but will get you in after hours. Another thing to keep in mind is to pay close attention to water leaks. Water cause a lot of problems to buildings, and it's really important that you communicate with us if you ever see any leaks anywhere, whether it's under the sink, whether it's through the roof, or through windows. We want to attend to those issues as quickly as possible. Plumbing issues are also problems, particularly when it comes to drains. Your drains should have been inspected before you moved in, and they are clear. Technically speaking, you are responsible for clogged drains, so it's important that you are careful, particularly with some of our older drain lines that we have in our buildings, that you're careful what you throw down the drain. Your lease is going to indicate whether pets are allowed. If you have a dog or a cat, make sure it is stipulated in their contract before you move that dog or cat into the apartment. That is a significant lease violation to have an unauthorized pet. One thing that's less known is the fact that sometimes you have a friend who has a dog and they come and visit you. They too are not allowed to come into the building with a pet or into your unit. So keep in mind that no pets is also no friends' pets. When it comes to parking, your lease will also stipulate whether you have a parking space or storage. Particularly for parking, make sure that you only park in your assigned space. If someone else is parked in your space, contact us or your resident manager. As with most leases, they state that there's no alterations allowed. And if you read through it, it's very particular. I mean, it talks about not putting pictures up or making small holes in the wall. Of course, that's not practical. The reality is that we want this place to be your home, and that certain customization, like putting up pictures or shelves, or some people even like changing a room making a room a different color. Those are all things that are acceptable to us, so long as A, you talk to us about it in advance, B, you get permission, and C, and most importantly, you recognize that you will need to bring it back to its original condition when the time comes to move out. So if you know you're going to stay there for 6 months to a year, maybe you don't want to do a whole lot. But if you really love this place and this is your home, maybe doing some more major upgrades to the unit may be worth your while, even if you do have to spend the money to bring it back to its original condition. When it comes to satellite dishes, those generally have to be placed on the roof. There are certain guidelines that are stipulated in the lease if you want to have satellite television. It's actually usually pretty difficult to be approved for it. So if you do want to have some sort of dish television or some sort of satellite TV, it's important that you check your contract first and check the property first to make sure that it is allowed before you go and sign a contract. Smoking being bad for you is also bad for an apartment. We certainly do not allow smoking in and around the premises. That's not only in your unit, on your balcony, in the common area hallways, in the backyard, in the parking lot, in front of the building within 20 feet. Smoking is not allowed, and it's important that you not only not smoke yourself, but make sure that none of your guests smoke also. While many of our properties have resident managers and groundskeepers or janitorial staff that comes periodically, it is important that you be a good member of the community. You also play your part in keeping the grounds clean. You know, if you see a piece of trash lying on the ground, there's no reason why you can't pick it up also. This is your home, and by making it your home, you also want to keep it clean and do your part. So now on to the addendums. Of course, because the lease isn't long enough, we have to add numerous other pages of disclosures and addendums for you to understand. First one is lead-based paint. You should have received a booklet that provides you information about lead paint. That is a real serious issue. And actually, the reality is most of our properties have lead paint under many, many layers of old paint. It's a very common used building material of the past. And so it's really important that you always make sure you live in apartments that don't have peeling paint. For more information on lead-based paint, please look through your booklet. Asbestos, like lead paint, was also a commonly used building material and certainly may exist in the property. We're not aware specifically about that, whether your property has asbestos, but it is important, again, that you are careful not to disturb walls. You know, if you're hanging a picture, you're fine, but you certainly don't want to be opening up walls. Prop 65 talks about potentially hazardous chemicals you may be exposed to in an apartment living situation. Believe it or not, most apartments have carcinogens that you're exposed to, such as fumes from cars, secondhand smoke, chemicals coming from pest control services, etc. Frankly speaking, there's nothing specific to your apartments that aren't containing in all the other apartments we manage. If there was, we'd certainly let you know. But because California happens to be a place where lots of lawyers exist, people like to sue for the obvious. You'll notice in your lease there's also reference to a website for Megan's Law, where you can find out if there's a sex offender in your area. Mold comes from moisture. Moisture usually comes from some sort of defect in the place, whether it's plumbing, roof, or window related. All of a sudden you'll see discoloration in the wall. Don't get too alarmed about it at first. Clean it off, maybe it's fine. But if you see it coming back, it could be mold. And mold is a living organism and will continue to grow if left untreated. We want to take care of that problem, not only for the health of the building, but for your own health too. For many people with respiratory issues like asthma, mold can be very toxic for them and cause a lot of problems. And so please contact us if you think you're having a mold problem. But the reality is we find that 9 out of 10 times when people contact us saying that they've got mold in their apartment, it's really through a fourth way, which is a lack of ventilation. It could be the winter time. You could have 4 roommates in a 2-bedroom apartment sharing 1 bathroom. They all consecutively take showers and lots of moisture gets into the air. It's wintertime, it's cold, no one's ventilating. That is a real haven for mold. And so it's important that you always ventilate your apartment. Otherwise, you will most certainly have a mold problem. If for some reason you might be on a ground floor apartment or really just don't want to keep your windows open, then we strongly recommend getting yourself a dehumidifier, which will take the moisture outside the air. Barring doing ventilation or a dehumidifier, we cannot be responsible for mold that a mold infestation that happens because of lack of ventilation. So keep that in mind as you're living in your apartment. Finally, bed bugs. They are real. They are out there. We've had 7 situations in the last few years. Bed bugs are oftentimes found in furniture, like beds. And if you are purchasing a used piece of furniture, you want to make sure that you inspect it for any sort of pest in there. They do cause problems for you physically, but also can cause a huge infestation in the apartment. We as a policy feel that that is the responsibility of the resident to prevent bed bugs. And our last situation where we had to remediate cost the resident over $1,500. So it is important that you are careful what you bring into our apartments. You will notice that your home has at least 1 smoke detector in each bedroom and 1 on every floor outside of the bedroom, as well as at least 1 carbon monoxide detector on each floor. Those are there to save your lives. And so it's important that you not only check them periodically, make sure you have a working battery and test them, but also make sure you don't take out that battery or somehow disable them. That is one of the most common lease violations. We'll do an inspection of our buildings and find numerous smoke detectors out of commission. Not because of us, but because of residents took them out, either because the battery wasn't working or if they wanted to do things in their apartment they weren't supposed to do. So please protect yourself as well as your neighbors by not disabling your smoke detector. One of the best ways that you can be a good neighbor is to respect quiet hours, which are from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. During that time, please keep it down. Don't play your music too loud. When you're in the hallways, please keep it down and not disturb other people. Other people may have different schedules, and other people may be less willing to hear noise than you are. You are responsible for what your guests are doing and how they act within the building, so please keep an eye on them. If your apartment happens to have wood floors and you happen to be on an upper level, it's important to recognize that your lease does stipulate that you do need to put throw rugs down on the usable floor space in order to prevent noise transmission from one unit to the other. We talked a little earlier about keeping the building clean and being a good member of the community, but you also want to keep your unit clean. I always say this, that if you don't like to clean or you don't know how to clean, then hire someone to clean. Because if you don't clean your apartment, which I've seen for multiple years, when you come out of that apartment, I can almost guarantee you there's going to be a major charge on the security deposit. So please keep your apartment clean and dispose of trash in the proper place. We also strive to become a green company. We really want everyone to recycle. Your building will have recycle cans, and it's important that you put the proper type of items in the proper receptacle. In addition, if you can compost, that's even better. Finally, it's important that you also don't throw hazardous items through the trash, like batteries or compact fluorescents. There are a lot of resources and places to take them in our area, so please do your part and go green and take care of our environment. While all of our apartments are in great areas and are in high demand, we do live in an urban area where there happens to be quite a bit of crime. There really is no safe area of Berkeley and Oakland, so we all need to be vigilant. And that comes to where you live and what you can do to protect the property and yourselves. First and foremost, don't let somebody into the building you don't know. Sure, there may be somebody standing next to the intercom system at the building, and they seem nice, they seem well-dressed, and they're just going to follow you in as you go into the building. But I encourage you to stop and say, please go to the intercom and dial whoever you're here to visit. When it comes to coming in and out of the parking lot, or the garage if it is a secured area, you want to make sure that that gate closes before you leave, and keep your eye on it. Make sure nobody slips underneath the gate, etc., to get in. But really, the security of the building is really as good as the pizza guy who's leaving the building after he delivered the pizza. Really, you need to protect your unit individually. Really, common area security doors are really not that secure. It's your own unit door that really is important. So lock your deadbolt. Make sure your windows are always locked. Generally speaking, when we've had break-ins in the past, it's always been to the easy pickings, the ones where the doors were unlocked. There was no sign of forced entry. So when these criminals are trying to come in and out, they want to do it fast. So be aware of that. Also, don't leave anything right in front of a window that might be of value, that might be easy to steal. Whether it's inside your apartment or in your car, leave nothing of value in your cars because people will break into those. So do your part to protect your property. We also encourage you to consider getting renter's insurance. It's really inexpensive, usually $200 to $300 a year, and will provide you that peace of mind that your property is covered not only for theft, but also if there's any sort of fire or flood or leak that occurs in the building, because the insurance policy of the building does not cover the contents, only the structure. As we're getting to the end of our lease, you will see the useful phone numbers that I referred to you before, which has the utility providers, service providers, as well as, most importantly, your move-in coordinator and resident manager. Your move-in coordinator is the one who's going to welcome you to the property. They're going to give you your keys, they're going to show you around, they're going to do your initial walkthrough with you. However, even though your lease may start on the first of the month, we oftentimes have residents who show up days or sometimes even weeks later. So they're not waiting around for you. So it's important that you contact them at least a week in advance to schedule your move-in appointment. Also, you will note that your lease does state that your term starts at 5 p.m. on the first day of your lease. While we oftentimes try to get your unit ready for you earlier, it is better that you schedule your move-in as late as possible in the day and coordinate with your move-in coordinator to make sure that your unit is ready. Don't forget within the first 7 days of possession to complete that check-in, check-out sheet. If you don't have yours with you, feel free to ask your resident manager or move-in coordinator and they'll give you another copy. It is important that you do fill that out as soon as possible, as we cannot take those forms later. If you find that one or more items are not working in your apartment, please contact us as soon as possible and submit a service request on our website. We want to get to it as quickly as we can. There are a lot of moving parts and occasionally we may miss a few, but it is our goal to get your unit ready and operational as soon as possible. So these were just some highlights of the lease. As I mentioned before, the lease is pretty long and I encourage you to read every part and understand every part. After reading through it, if you have any questions, please ask your agent to explain them to you. We don't want you to start off on the wrong foot. Again, I want to thank you for choosing one of our premium properties as your new home. We look forward to having you as our resident. Thanks.